Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Thanks as always for making us your first listen. We are back again to wrap up the week with another Locked On Texas Tech special edition. It's the Matador Mob Mailbag. Questions from you, our beloved Matador mobsters. So appreciate all those sent in. We'll get into as many as we can. Away we go. We waste no time. We will get into some portal conversation as far as some hits and misses, going back to some targets on, say, a hot board at the beginning of this process. Were there actually misses that were a part of this? I'll ask you about that, Chris, coming up. Also want to get to any latest updates that you can provide as far as some of Grant McCaslin's efforts to assemble his staff for next season. We can't forget that you've got some vacancies there now with a couple of departures at last check. And that's essentially where I'll kick off our conversation as well, because we did have questions from, let's see here. We had questions from Landon, Caleb, Seth, Roger, and Martin asking about basketball portal activity. One of them put it this way: have we gone dormant in the basketball portal, or how hopeful are we that we could still be landing a point guard or ball handler a la Elijah or Joe by waiting till May? And then Roger was asking about rumors regarding Ben Henshaw, a name that was mentioned on this program about a week ago. So let's hit the basketball front and get the latest as far as portal pursuits and some staff pursuits.
I don't think this roster has been finalized. I think they have at least a couple of spots to fill if they want to. I think you could get anywhere from 1 to none big ticket items. But I'd be willing to bet you that at least one of your spots is filled. I've said that before. It won't shock me at all if you have an empty slot, on your roster that allows you to have some freedom, whether it be later on in the summer or around the draft process or just next semester. Once the fall is completed and you're able to, like you did with the Kumtok, like you did with Jalen Tyson, like you did with Kyron Lindsey. I mean, these were all players that were that joined the team at mid-year. I do think you still have a want/need for a guard. I think so. The thing about Ben Henshaw is he is a pro prospect. I think he's a very highly regarded pro prospect. I don't know if he's highly regarded enough to where he's guaranteed to stay in the draft, but he's definitely going to give that a whirl. I think that what will happen with him is he's either going to stay in the draft, which he's declared for. He's going to sit it out, which I would bet against, because that's the one spot where you're not making any scratch, out there to be had. I think he could go back and play for Perth, and I think Florida and Texas Tech are heavily in the mix if he were to pull his name out of the draft and stay in college. I think this is I can't pretend to know the amount of the ticket, but I would say that this is an expensive ticket. I don't know if we're talking like peak. I don't know, Cowan. What's the most expensive concert ticket you can come up with? I mean, like who would
at the Sphere?
Going to see the Eagles at the Sphere, or going to see, I don't know, peak all timer, Prince, Michael Jackson, I don't know, whatever you want to say. That's what, this is going to be, I would guess, an expensive ticket to purchase. I don't know where it ranks as far as where, compared to some of your other big ticket items. But this would be, if you get this, you are done. This is a final piece to I think what you would think is a top 5, top 10 roster. Other people are going to agree with it. In fact, you would maybe move from like eighth or ninth to third or fourth or something, maybe even higher with an addition of a player like this with as much up. This is a 6'5" point guard. I think it's a bit of a stretch to think that you're going to get him, though. This is going to be difficult just because of all the different options he's got. And as good as he is, that may, you're going to have to potentially outbid Florida, or you're going to have to potentially just say, hey, man, we're not going to get you because he's staying in the draft. Or, you know what? I don't like the States. I'm going to go back and play. Whatever. I mean, there's a lot that would need to fall your way for this player to land in Lubbock, and it's going to take a while, in my opinion, for that process to play out. Be wrong there. Maybe it's, it's not as long as one would think, or maybe it's 6 weeks, 2 months. We'll see kind of where we're at there, and how well he does in some of the NBA training that he's doing, getting ready for the NBA Combine or whatever it is. So there's that. I do think, and here's the other things that you're working with or working around, is that if you wait on him, you could be left with nothing. If you fill the void and spend any money or go get another player, there's other players out there that can play this role or a role yet to be defined that includes being a combo guard that can play next to or instead of Christian Anderson at times with the ball in his hands. But at some point, when this house case is ruled upon, then you can't play the money game, or so they say. And yet keep waiting on the house case to be settled upon. So there's that dynamic too. So you know what? Palms up emoji. I don't know, but that's kind of where you're at. But I don't think there were some rumors about a high school big man that was set to visit this weekend. That is not accurate. It does tell you, though, they're still trying to fill out their roster with some different options, but a guard / combo guard / point guard, whatever, that is very much a want and a need. And I think they're trying to aim very high there, would be my suggestion. So there could be a massive payoff, or you're left going, damn, I showed up to trick or treat. They handed me a toothbrush, and this is what I was looking for. I was looking for the full-size Snickers or something.
Flew out on the warning track, close, no cigar, all those kinds of things. There have been some cigars, though, so it can make it a little easier to tolerate.
No doubt.
You don't hit only home runs, I guess. Thank you for that question. This question from Marvin, Brandon, and Joshua were all asking about those updates staff-wise for Coach McCaslin. Are there targets to think about externally? Is it an internal type thing, or?
But by the way, and we'll get to that. But I was thinking about it, because if you end up flying out on the warning track, the young man from Minnesota, the Gatorade Player of the Year there, that former Yale commitment, and Minnesota, Wisconsin, Nolan Groves, that he would at that point be looked to fill a lot of that void. I think it's interesting to note that think of this young man is also, I think, 6'5" or 6'4" I don't think he weighs as much as somebody like a Ben Hanschel. But the point I'm bringing that up is, one, if you do fly out on the warning track, this now becomes a very important player for you all of a sudden. I do find it interesting. Think about what I just said to you, though. He was the Minnesota Gatorade Player of the Year. He was going to go to Yale. Think about how hard it is as a freshman coming out of high school to be recruited to the D1 level. It's a Minnesota Player of the Year, Gatorade Player of the Year. And think about how long his process played out. And then right before he's set to go to college, he finally makes some things happen with his recruitment, and he's got a Minnesota and a Wisconsin and a Texas Tech option. But it just shows you how hard it is, and how few spots there are out there, because everybody's portaling. Okay, so coaching staff wise,
First, today's episode brought to you by Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for skilled trades with Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. And their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from more than 400 top brands, you're going to find exactly what you need, delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trademaster program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage, and now it's your turn to take your business to the next level. Join the Trademaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM. That's supplyhouse.com/TM, and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with only a few clicks. Plus, use our promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's SH5 at supplyhouse.com.
Okay, so coaching staff wise, I'm of the opinion you're going to make you're going to need to make a few hires here, and even if you promote from within, which I think you're going to, there's still somebody to backfill whoever was promoted. It's just lower on the organizational flow chart. By the way, I hated filling those out when in school. All these bubbles and lines and all this stuff's like a big spider web. I'm just like, I just want to be the guy on the top, and I've never been that. So I'm always the one looking up at all the people telling me what to do. I think Chris Nottingham will be the guy that would get promoted. That would be my suggestion if you do make a promotion from within. Chris Nottingham is somebody that was with Scott Drew at Baylor for several years. He's just under 30 years old, I think. So in his late 20s. 2 years ago, he was your video coordinator. Last year, he was one of the, I think he was tagged with like the player development deal. He's the one, Chris is the one holding up the whiteboard saying, D5 elbow, L2 screen, whatever. Like he's holding up the play on offense, which I always thought was fascinating. I remember asking like Grant one time before we started a post-game interview, I'm like, you're okay, obviously, what people see. He's like, we don't care. Like players over plays, right? Like it doesn't matter. If you're really good at what you do, you just say, hey, we're going to throw it to this dude. He's going to shoot it right over you, giddy up. And like most often this year, that's kind of what happened. But that would be my thought on a candidate that would be promoted. Chris is extremely sharp. He is on the fast track of being a big time assistant coach. I think he knows a ton of people. He's a brainiac. He kind of flirts with the analytics, and he's great with the video, and I mean just all the stuff. So anyway, that's my thought there. If you were to promote from within, which would mean you would need to fill Chris's spot. It means you need to fill still another spot if that's the route you went, because you've got to replace Matt Breyer and Luke Barnwell. So that's what I would offer up now. We'll see kind of what happens and how that plays out. But I would imagine now you're able to, now that the roster situation has kind of mostly been put together, you're now able to focus on what you're – and what's funny is, remember how frustrated people were, let's say, I don't know, 3 to 4 weeks ago, when there was a lot of activity out there and you weren't really involved in much of it, and people were like, what's going on? We got no team. Whatever. And now you look up and everybody's got you either 6th or 8th, or I saw John Rothstein say in a podcast, he's like, it is BYU, Texas Tech, and Houston. Those are the top 3 teams in the Big 12. Everybody will be chasing those guys. And you're just kind of in this category now. You didn't ask about this, but I'll just offer up. I do think that Darion Williams, this isn't a secret, but I do think there's a chance that he ends up at Kansas. But they're like anything relating to Darion Williams is going to be the same thing with Ben Hanschel, in that you've got to play out the NBA process. Now, what you can do is on the money game, I think you could potentially go ahead and have them commit and sign a contract with you or your collective or whatever, and then date it to where, because most of that money has to be paid out by, I think it's July 1 or June 30th or something. NBA draft will have already taken place by then. She'll have already known who's already pulled their name out of the draft and all that. You could already get a contract signed and a commitment and all that stuff and be like, hey, man, so this is what we've got you locked up if you're not going to the NBA. So you could play the money game that way, even if we don't find out about it for another several weeks. This is probably what is potentially happening with Darion Williams in Kansas. So it's like I'm covered either way. I'm staying in the draft if I feel good about it, or I've got a contract for this number going back to this school. So, that would be my thought on how that could work.
All right, that would be painful to process, but we've had practice in that regard before, but would be a little bit different with Darion, I think, compared to the player Kevin McCullough was for you, and then eventually winds up wearing a Kansas jersey. Just keep it outside of the Big 12, guys. How many basketball programs are there across the nation? You think this is the only league going? Come on. All right, we'll deal with that when we have to deal with that maybe sometime down the road. I want to switch gears a little bit with you and look toward the football program, because I thought this was an interesting question from Clayton, who was wondering if you had a feel for any big missed targets for Joey McGuire and the staff, going back to maybe when you're putting together a hot board. It sure seemed like to me, Chris, you were scooping up everything that you were after. I guess I can't imagine that it was a 100% success rate, but I'll allow you to tell me it was, if that was the reality. Do you know of any that they maybe really wanted, but it didn't work out for whatever reason?
You know, the closest thing I can come to that is Jamal Jarrett, the Georgia defensive tackle. You'll remember him.
Yeah.
He ended up at USC, I think. I think there was some heavy interest. I think that, and I don't know if you would have taken him along with, or if you ended up with somebody like AJ Holmes instead of, or if at the time you're like, hey, our money at these other positions are best spent elsewhere. Because, I mean, you pretty much got Skylar Gill Howard and Lee Hunter close to the onset of what that was going. I can't exactly remember the timeline, but I think he's one that they would have had a legitimate interest in that they did not get. I can't say as to why they didn't get him, but that would be as close to a, and he didn't play a ton for Georgia last year, but he was a monster recruit with a ton of upside, and he had a ton of interest out there. But that's as close as I can remember. There was a Western Carolina offensive lineman at the very, very beginning of the portal process, but you ended up with a bunch of guys, and I think you were trying to sort through things, and you ended up with largely who you wanted to end up with, I would say. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think it was perfect, but I think it was pretty darn close.
Pretty close. Yeah, I like that we're kind of having to work to come up with that one name just to answer the question.
Yeah.
It can't be perfect, but man, it seemed like.
And I think too, there were maybe some folks that would have been really good and better than some of the folks that you got that you didn't even go after, because either one, can't afford it, don't want to afford it,
sure,
or probably weren't going to get, and so we're not even going to try.
Yeah,
I can't say that, but I mean, I'm not saying that they just like handpick, like, here's the guys we want on the portal list, let's just go offer them, and then away we go. No, I mean, there's plenty of other good players out there, and the timing of everything is all jumbled up and on top of each other, and I mean,
it's really what I'm thinking about, like more. Okay, the fit is nice. The price is reasonable. We like this guy. Let's go get him. And which of those was there maybe a miss on him? Maybe it's just the guy you've already mentioned. There's not that many of them.
Because keep in mind, you weren't originally going to take this many guys. I just know that Joey's standard line there is that there's just so much production in the portal right now. It was like there's another piece of cake. God, that cake is good. There's another one. I'm you know what? I'm just going to eat it until I throw up, but I can't turn down good cake. And so they just kept saying, we can't pass this up. The production is just too good. And so let's overcommit. And you've seen the thinning of things in recent weeks where you've kind of trimmed on the back end and let people try out and whatnot. And so there was some minor consequences there with what you did, but I just think they just couldn't pass it up. And I think there was people that were funding it that were like, we don't want you to pass it up. Like let's keep eating cake.
Some of that cake is 6'5", 330, 340.
Yes.
Have another slice. Why don't we? All right. Appreciate that question. This question from a couple of different folks, and I did want to include it, though maybe it's a little bit off the beaten path for this show, but we had Zach in Austin. We also had Lee, and we had, Reynold here asking about the future of something called RedRaidersports.com. There was some news related to the Rivals Network this week, as I believe On3 is making a purchase or they're coming together, whatever. You can fill in these blanks, Chris, I'm sure. But RedRaidersports.com, for those that don't know, is the Texas Tech message board and fan community for a long time running that Chris Level and a gang of all-stars have presided over. It's so good. It's what a message board will subscribe to if you want to generate content for your message board. Others have tried to do that. RedRaidersports.com. So there are plenty out there, and I know probably a lot in our audience, even though it's not 100% crossover, but there are plenty of folks in this audience that spend time in that community, Chris. So a lot of folks curious about maybe the direction of this. So can you set up, I guess, the circumstances? And I know you don't have all the answers for the future, but what's some of the latest as to what we could maybe expect?
Even Casey Cowan been known to post on RedRaidersports.com. Yeah, we've yeah. That's the beauty of that site is it's off the rails sometimes, but there's a lot of content on there, which we have a great team that provides and works tirelessly 7 days a week. It's not like with a website, you don't just turn it off and, hey man, we're closed for the day. We'll open it back up in the morning and turn the lights back on and flip the sign around and all that stuff. No, this is never turning off. Right.
You may consider that at some point. I'm not quite sure though if you can get away with it.
Yeah, after you drop a football game in the fall, you'd be like, "Okay, man, we're closed. Sorry, no more customers."
Yeah, like if you dare to go to sleep, it's like that scene from Community when Troy walks back into the flaming apartment on fire with 4 pizzas in his hands, thinking, "What happened overnight?"
Yeah,
it's a lot of fun. Sign up today, RedRaidersports.com. Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good. Yeah, dude, I interrupt way too much on the show. You need to interrupt me a gazillion times. My wife is like, "You are so rude," and I'm like, I'm not. I just sometimes we glitch or
Thank you, Mrs. Level. You've been getting my notes. It sounds like okay,
right, absolutely. Yeah, Giovanetti and I have been working together with that since 2002. He stepped away to go work for Chancellor Hansen. I want to say like 2010, 2011, I kept with it and obviously still was doing radio and you were at the time, but that thing is just kind of been built into a bit of a monster as far as like an online community. And we have been courted by various networks over the years. I only bring that up to say that On3 tried to get us to switch, was, year and a half, 2 years ago. We re-upped with Rivals, which I'm probably guilty of being too loyal. I've had some regret there. This will be a partnership with Rivals and On3. You're right. I have more than I'm going to say now, but I mean, essentially, it should be really good for the subscriber out there because you get more content, more coverage nationally, not just locally, and all the things. And there's a lot of resources put to folks that either cover high school recruiting or cover the portal and NIL and all that stuff. And I think these sites are going to coexist and focus on those things where Rivals will focus on, because when we were coming up, Cowan, Rivals was the standard as far as like recruiting nationally and rankings and 5-star this and that. And then since they've just missed a step, that they aren't, the staff is just not there nationally. But I think what On3 is going to do with the help of Yahoo Sports, because this is essentially like a partnership now. Yahoo is bought into On3. So what does it mean for the general RedRaidersports.com subscriber? I would think it would enhance your experience as you'll find out more about your team and athletes and and then other teams and athletes and whatnot, whether it be from a high school or college. But there'll be more to come that we will pass along when we are allowed to, and it's a process. But yeah, my phone was blowing up from interested parties. I think I was and still kind of working through that process, and we'll continue to do that. But that's it's a compliment to the community of the people there, that people want to have RedRaidersports.com be a part of whatever platform that they're in. So
that's right. And shout out to all those, because I know there are plenty of them out there who have been hanging tight since the Red Raider Extreme days, and something even before that. I don't know, maybe printed on paper, but they're out there, and whatever the future will hold, I know it'll be great, because it'll be led by the same folks who have made it great to begin with. And that's not just Chris and the staff. That's, of course, the majority of those who make up that community at RedRaidersports.com. All right, that commercial is over. Thanks for the question. Next question. Speaking of football, and speaking of some of what we've seen as far as the portal additions are concerned, I have a feeling we'll trend towards one position group here, but I don't want to limit it to that necessarily. Roy is asking, Chris, can you give me our speedster's name? Do we have a breakaway speed guy on this roster? Are we going to talk about a pass catcher? Would we talk about a returner, or we talk about a running back possibly? Who's coming to mind for you?
Is this just of the portal guys?
No. Anybody on the roster. New, old, in between.
Yeah, I mean, I would say to you that of the new guys, I mean, I think Quentin Joyner is somebody that can just flat out fly. I think Jacoby Williams does some of that as well. Cam Dickey, I'm just staying along the running back deal because I brought up the other two. He's got some of that, but the other two are legitimately fast, serious juice. I think Caleb, now he's a bit dinged up right now, but I think prior to said injury, I think he had gotten a bit faster, maybe trimmed down just a bit and maybe put that weight, some different, whatever. I think he's got some juice. I think that Dingle still remains one of your fastest guys on your team. I mean, it's the star player. I mean, he's a classic band player. When he's out there, somebody's band is playing. And it used to be that occasionally he may run too fast the wrong direction or take a misstep. But now it's much more where only your band is playing. He's so fast because, it's like the old saying. It's like when he's out there, something's going to happen. It's not going to be boring, but I just can't tell you how many times I've been on the sideline early in his career, and he would get in the game, and like everybody is over there like on just eyes peeled going, okay, what's he going to do? What's this going to look like? Because they knew something's going to happen. I mean, something. And it is just like there's an excitement level with somebody like Dingle. But I think he's really matured. I think he's settled in. I think he's got a spot. But that speed came with it. And he is one of your fastest guys, no doubt. But yeah, Joyner of the newcomers would probably who I'd offer up to you.
Okay. Somewhat unexpected. I like that answer. All right, Roy, thank you for that question. Andrew asks this question. If 1,000 kids are in the portal for any sport, there's only 500 landing spots total. What happens to those without a chair when the music stops? Is the career just over? Are you hooking up with group of 5 or lower destinations?
There are thousands, plural, of basketball and football players in the portal still. And like the old do not contact tag that gets attached to some of these guys when they get into the portal, these are the smart ones. These are the ones that have been allowed to be tampered with, or they've had their people working on something. It's like you don't ever quit a job. If you need a job, you don't ever quit one without having another one lined up first, right? It's not smart. It's not good business. And I think that if you're frustrated or looking for greener grass or whatever, and you get into the portal, now in some cases, some guys are like, hey man, it's not happening for you here. We appreciate your contributions, but hey man, and good luck to you in your future endeavors, but it's just not going to happen here for you. There's different categories of this, but what happens is, let's just say like the tech, because you've had a Data Ray go to NC State, You've had Faddig go to Stanford. You've had Shaw go to North Texas. Isaac Smith went to Michigan State. I mean, these are good options for these kids. I don't know at the time that you and I are sitting here talking if I've seen anything for Jordan Sanford. He will be able to find a spot, but like your other guys, your fringe players, there's a reality that they will have to either go down a level or out altogether, and they'll have to like go, okay, do I want to try to keep doing this? Now, the natural progression is with a lot of these types of players, they will go, let's just use like ACU as an example. Or in North Texas, that's same thing. The regional, one of your players ended up there. Some of your other guys have ended up at ACU. So if your guys can't cut it here or just get squeezed here, if they end up there, what happens? Okay, now they are now squeezing the back end of those rosters, and then those guys get shuffled out to where it's just the career's over. Unless you're willing to go to junior college or unless you're willing to go far away, whatever. But yeah, at some point, there's plenty of guys that just end up without a seat to sit in. And that's just the harsh reality of it. And it's just hard, man. It really is. And that's why I go back to like the high school prospect. It's like, this Groves kid, he's pretty damn good. And look how long it took him to get to where he was trying to go. And he's not making a ton of money at Tech and all that. But yeah, that's ultimately what happens. But you just, if it's your choice to go into the portal, boy, I would strongly suggest you have life figured out after that, so you kind of know what's coming as opposed to rolling the dice, because there's a lot of good football players out there in the portal with no spot to go play at.
Yeah. I know that there are always, in a previous era, there are always guys from year to year that are like, hey, you're not making this roster the next year, or your time here's done for whatever reason, whatever you're choosing, staff's choosing, whatever it might be, was nowhere near as publicized, obviously, because we didn't have a transfer portal tracker or anything like that, or a roster cut or scholarship non-renewal tracker. But I do think, obviously, the numbers have become like way inflated, because now you have this incentive if you are one of those players to think, well, I could get in the portal and then I'm going to have all this lined up. I'm going to have offers, options left and right. And so somebody previously that might have clung to that roster spot they had a little more dearly, a little more tightly, feels like there's more opportunity out there now. And obviously that's not the reality for everybody, but it does in a lot of ways just mirror reality. So I don't find it to be some great tragedy necessarily.
And what's interesting is, Cowan, is that the judge has basically, this has been the sticking point on why this House case has not been settled yet. And she's got a major issue with roster limits and wants them to be phased in. I think she's heard a lot of arguments from Olympic sport athletes on spots getting cut or programs getting slashed or whatever. And yet, as this has been delayed, how many football players have been like kicked to the curb because everybody thinks you're going down to 105? Dozens and hundreds. And I mean, so many players in some of these other sports have, it's too late at this point. They've been cut, which was her fear. So I think that is ironic.
Sure. This question from Will: is the huge number of transfers in and out this year something we should get accustomed to seeing every year? With Joey being a Texas High School Coaches Association guy, is this a temporary booster while we start to turn more focus back to high school recruiting? I know a lot of this has to do with what you were just talking about, probably, as we approach years to come.
I think that with the House case, if that is approved, and we're just continuing to wait, I mean, so I was told this week from somebody that would absolutely know. It'll be approved or settled in 7 to 10 days. I'm like, okay, but I also would say that this is kind of what we've been hearing for the last month now. Yeah. But if approved, I do think you'll see much less movement in the portal. Now, can I define to you much less? I don't know if I can. I do think it will calm the waters. And it does put much more of an emphasis on the high school recruiting, which is what Texas Tech is about to enter into that cycle. You just hosted a bunch of 5 stars and a 4-star kid. You added a 4-star safety recently. and you're about to your June is going to be packed full of official visit weekends where the football staff and coaches and all the staff will be just as busy as they are at any other time of the year, with big time recruits coming in weekend after weekend after weekend. And the town at that point, you're thinking June, it's like it's damn near empty. But this is the calendar. It still messes with my head. But I think there's more emphasis on that, or will be, if that settlement is approved. I do think, though, that the portal will live on, and I'm not sure about the old buyout in the contract. I think that is, we talked about that, and like you would have to buy guys out of getting in the portal and this and that. I don't know if I'm there yet on if that's reality or not. Some of that's being litigated or being threatened to be litigated now. So we'll see. But I think you'll have to go get a receiver in the portal after this year. Okay. I'm just, as an example, you get a bunch of seniors about to graduate and then a bunch of inexperience. I could see that you are wanting to dabble a little bit in somebody that's done it before. And so, maybe it tilts just a bit, but I don't know if we know how much it tilts just yet. But it won't be like it was to that number, I don't think, to that extent.
All right, appreciate that question. This question here, something touched on by a couple of different guys. We got Lance, Jared, Kirk, and Trey all asking about a concern level relating to our starting wide receivers' health as we leave the spring and look ahead to the fall. But to answer that question, or hear the answer to that question, you'll need to be a Matador Mob insider. So hit our show notes and find a link to a free 14-day trial for those on the outside. This is where we leave you as we head to the OT portion. So make sure you're subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you don't miss a thing, and become a Matador Mobster today for less than a cup of coffee a month so you can get the full Mailbag experience next week. All right, Chris, appreciate the regular portion of your time. I know you're geared up for OT time now. Enjoyed it all week long, man.
I appreciate it, Cal, and thank you for hosting, and always a pleasure to be with you. And we'll talk to everybody next time, or we'll keep going, depending on what side of the team you're on this deal.
Lines have been drawn. Call him Will Travis at the Alamo, baby. The saber is in the sand. All right, I might have went a little over my skis there. Have a great weekend, everybody. Hope to see you back on the other side for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.